The Tale of Bup the Bunny, a short story by Enid Blyton. Narrated by Kenneth de Silva. There was once a bunny called Bup. He was very vain and longed for everyone to look at him and admire him. His whiskers were long, his ears were big, and his fur was thick. The only thing he didn't like was his tail. It was just a furry blob, like all rabbits' tails, but Bup wanted a big tail, one like Bushy the squirrel's, or a long one like Puss Cat's. It was horrid to have a little bobtail that nobody took any notice of at all. Then, one day, when he was out in the woods, he found a lovely long white tail. It had belonged to a toy cat that a little boy had taken for a walk. The tail had caught in a bramble and fallen off, so the little boy had left it there. Bup picked it up and looked at it. Here was exactly the kind of tail he had so often wanted. He would take it home, try it on, and see how it looked. So off he went, clippity-clippity through the woods, and ran down his hole. When he was safely down there, he tied the long white tail onto his own, and then looked over his shoulder to see what it was like. "My," he said, "I look grand. Yes, I do. I shall have this tail for my own, and pretend to everyone that it is real. No one will know, and they will all admire me and be jealous. I shall be the only rabbit with a long tail." He stayed in his hole for a few days, and when his friends came to see what was the matter, he put his head out and answered them very proudly. "I am growing a long tail," he said. "I hear it's quite the fashion now. It's only half grown yet, but as soon as it is fully grown, I'll show it to you." Well, all the rabbits were most astonished. They asked each other whether anyone had heard of a long-tailed bunny before, but no one ever had. They began to think that Bup was making fun of them, so they waited anxiously for the day to come when he would come and play with them again. On the 7th day, Bup the bunny came out of his hole. He had tied on the toy cat's tail very firmly, so that it quite hid his own bobtail. As he lolloped out of his hole, all the rabbits cried out in surprise, "Yes! He's grown a tail! Yes, he has! Come and look! Everybody, everybody! Bup has a long tail!" Not only the rabbits came to see, but the foxes and weasels, sparrows and thrushes, hedgehogs and moles. The foxes and weasels were not allowed to come too near, for the rabbits hated them, but they came quite near enough to see the wonderful long tail. How proud Bup was! He hopped about here and there, showing off his long tail, enjoying all the cries of surprise and envy. "How did you do it, Bup?" asked the other rabbits. "Tell us, and we will do the same." Bup knew quite well that they couldn't do the same, because his was only a pretend tail. But he couldn't tell them that, of course, so he sat down and looked very wise. "All you've got to do," he said, "is to sit at home in your burrow. Think about tails for 7 days. Yes, and then at the end of that time, you will have one as good as mine." Well, the silly rabbits believed him. Off they all went to their burrows and sat at home for 7 days, thinking of nothing but tails. But alas for them, when they came out again, their tails were as short as ever. They were dreadfully disappointed. "You are stupid creatures," said Bup, curling his whiskers. "I am the cleverest of all of you. Why don't you make me your king? It would be nice for you to have a long-tailed rabbit for a king, wouldn't it?" Now, not many rabbits liked Bup, for he was so vain, but he was so determined to be king that at last they thought they had better make him their chief. So they all set out to go to Breezy Hill, where they held their important meetings. They sat round in a ring, with Bup in the middle, and the oldest rabbit by him.
"Friends," said the oldest rabbit, "you are met together today to decide whether Bup the bunny shall be your king or not. He is the only long-tailed rabbit in our town. We have all tried to grow tails like his, and we cannot. Therefore it seems as if he must be the cleverest among us. Shall we make him king?"
But before the listening rabbits could answer, a red fox came slinking up. He had smelled the rabbits from far off and had come to see if he could pick one of them up for his dinner. They saw him coming over the hilltop, and with one frightened look, they took to their heels and fled. Bup fled too, his long tail dragged on the ground behind him, but he had forgotten all about it. All he thought of was his hole, his lovely, safe, cozy hole. If only he could get there before the red fox caught him. The fox chose to chase Bup, for he was fat and could not run quite so fast as the others. So off he went, after poor Bup. All the other rabbits reached their hole safely and popped their heads out to watch the race. Nearer and nearer the fox came, till he was almost on top of Bup. Then he suddenly made a snatch at the rabbit's long tail and got it in his mouth. "Oh, oh! Now Bup is caught!" cried all the watching rabbits. But the string that tied the long tail onto Bup suddenly broke, and Bup raced on free, while the astonished fox stopped still with the tail in his mouth. "My, oh my!" sang out the rabbits. "Why, Bup's got a short tail as well as a long tail. Look, there's his little bobtail, just like ours." So there was, quite plain to see, as Bup ran helter-skelter for his hole. Down he popped in safety and lay there, panting. How glad he was that his long tail had only been a pretend one. The fox gave one chew at the pretend tail and then blew it out of his mouth. Off he went in disgust. When he was safely out of sight, the rabbits all came crowding out to see the tail. They soon found out that it was nothing but a toy cat's tail, and how cross they were.
"To think that we all sat in our burrows for 7 days, thinking of nothing but tails," cried the oldest rabbit, "and we nearly made that wicked rabbit our king."
"And how foolish we would have been if we had grown long tails," said another. "Why, the fox would catch us easily if our tails were any longer." "Where's that stupid Bup bunny?" cried all the rabbits. "Let us go and find him." So off they went to Bup's burrow and dragged him out. They gave him a good scolding, so that both his ears drooped and his eyes filled with tears. And that was the end of Bup being so vain. If ever he showed any signs of being proud again, someone would say to him, "Well, Bup, have you grown another long tail yet?" And then Bup would go very red and run away. This has been the tale of Bup the bunny. Hope you liked it.